As Harriet Beecher Stowe reminds me, it is February, so I should start filming my February reading vlog. This also reminds me that I have never read Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I really like to someday. I am braver than I was because I have lost all, and he who has nothing to lose can afford all risks. So it's only been a couple weeks since I did my last reading vlog, but I already have quite a little stack here that I wanted to fill you guys in on. I did finish Call of the Wild. The first chapters didn't really pull me in, but then I gave it a second chance, and I'm so glad I did. Once the main character, Buck, the dog, kind of gets settled into his sled dog team, then the pace of the story really picks up, and there are more humans in it. That was one of the things in the first chapters. I was like, are there going to be any humans? And some of the writing is just amazing. He was mastered by the sheer surging of life, the tidal wave of being, the perfect joy of each separate muscle, joint, and sinew, in that it was everything that was not death, that it was a glow and rampant, expressing itself in movement, flying exultantly under the stars. I think winter was the perfect time to read this because, of course, a lot of it takes place in winter. The aurora borealis flaming coldly overhead, the stars leaping in the frost dance, the land numb and frozen under its pall of snow. This was from the chapter about one of Buck's less than pleasant owners and how they were not exactly cut out for trail life. The wonderful patience of the trail which comes to men who toil hard and suffer sore, and remain sweet of speech and kindly, did not come to these two men and women. The way he describes this is kind of funny. That Hal's views on art, or the sort of society plays his mother's brother wrote, should have anything to do with the chopping of a few sticks of firewood passes comprehension. Nevertheless, the quarrel was as likely to tend in that direction as in the direction of Charles' political prejudices. You know when you're in a web with someone and suddenly the quarrel becomes about things that really have nothing to do with the matter at hand. This edition actually does have two other stories at the end of it. What are they? To Build a Fire, Batard, and Love of Life. So at some point, I'm going to have to read those as well, but I really enjoyed Call of the Wild. This month, I also finished, this was a reread, The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. I've read this probably 2 or 3 times before. It might be my favorite of all of C.S. Lewis's works. I feel like every time I come back to it, I just discover something new or remember something that I absolutely love. So if you have not read The Great Divorce, I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm trying to think of how you could kind of sum it up without spoiling it. Because when you read it for the first time and you come in kind of, you know, blind and you don't know what the plot is about, it's not about a divorce like a married couple that gets divorced. I will tell you that. But it's just so cool when you read it not knowing what it's about. But just to give you a little tiny taste, I love how C.S. Lewis really reminds you that we are mortal human beings and God is divine and omnipotent and, you know, all-knowing. When we are trying to get close to God, we really have to trust Him in a very radical way because His logic is better than our logic. His ways are better than our ways, and His ways surpass our understanding. So like there's always going to be this point where we just have to put aside our sort of rational, you know, doubts and misgivings and just trust God. I thought it would be fun to read you guys some of my favorite passages. But here's the spoiler warning. If you haven't read this book yet, go ahead, skip ahead so that I don't spoil it for you, because I feel like really any of the quotes that you read kind of end up spoiling the book. Have you skipped ahead by now? Okay, good. So as you can tell from the cover, the narrator gets on a bus, which ends up taking him to kind of a new place. I had the sense of being in a larger space, perhaps even a larger sort of space than I had ever known before, as if the sky were further off and the extent of the green plain wider than they could be on this little ball of earth. I had got out in some sense, which made the solar system itself seem an indoor affair. See, I love that reminder that, like, when we're thinking and talking about God, we're really thinking and talking about something that totally surpasses our understanding. So it's like on this whole new level of awareness. Here's another passage like that where he finds a waterfall. On earth, such a waterfall could not have been perceived at all as a whole. It was too big. Here, after the first shock, my sensibility took both as a well-built ship takes a huge wave. So it's like his understanding is kind of being transformed as he tries to take in everything that's happening. Basically, this is Lewis kind of imagining what happens after death, and these ghosts are trying to make their way to heaven, and they meet old friends from Earth who kind of try to help them open up their understanding and start the journey. You would think that, like, if heaven was in sight and all you had to do was start the journey, like, obviously you would just, you know, kind of be off like a shot and be ready to go, but actually all of these ghosts are really held back by the sins that were with them on Earth, and so they all have to kind of overcome that. And I love how the spirits really challenge a lot of different notions. Like, this one ghost is kind of being held up on an intellectual level, and, you know, he's saying, oh, this is just my honest opinion, I should be allowed to think this. And the spirit says, I know we used to talk that way. I did it too until the end of my life, when I became what you call narrow. It all turns on what are honest opinions. Our opinions were not honestly come by. We simply found ourselves in contact with a certain current of ideas and plunged into it because it seemed modern and successful. When, in our whole lives, did we honestly face in solitude the one question on which it all turned, whether, after all, the supernatural might not in fact occur? When did we put up one moment's real resistance to the loss of our faith? You get to hear the story of quite a lot of different ghosts and what their different sins and struggles are in trying to just start on the road to heaven. And I think one of my favorites is the last one. You see the spirit who is coming to try to help one of the ghosts has this, like, big retinue, kind of like a parade. Like, obviously she's someone very important, but when the narrator asks, oh, who's that? Is that someone famous? It turns out that in her earthly life, she wasn't a big name, she wasn't successful. I just love that reminder that the way we kind of rank success and importance here on earth, like, it probably is not going to be the same ranking in heaven. I mean, like, even with my videos, like, I'll sometimes look back and, like, see how many views it got or how many likes it got, and, like, the ones with the most views you think were probably the most successful, so you think, oh, how can I do more like that will get that many views? And yet, the video with the most views is not necessarily the most successful. Like, maybe a video with very few views, like, impacted those fewer people way more than, like, a video with lots of views and people just watched it and forgot about it. With the internet, you don't really get to see the impact that your videos make. Like, you just see a number on a screen. People don't usually take the time to write comments. I don't really blame them. I certainly lurk on the internet too. But I like to think that maybe when we get to heaven, we'll get to see all of the little things that impacted somebody that, like, we did and we didn't even know that, like, it made an impact. Or maybe it's not even something on the internet. Maybe it's, like, someone you held the door for, or, like, someone you let make the turn in front of you out on the road. Like, these tiny things that to you it seemed to be nothing, but maybe it made a big difference. It's like when you throw a stone into a pool and the concentric waves spread out further and further. Who knows where it will end? Redeemed humanity is still young. It has hardly come into its full strength. But already there is joy enough in the little finger of a great saint such as yonder lady to waken all the dead things of the universe into life. Anyway, I would just highly recommend this. I feel like it deals with these, like, difficult, thorny issues and questions in, like, such a loving but matter-of-fact and straightforward way. I feel like this is definitely one of my, like, top book recommendations. I've been thinking lately it'd be fun to make a video like that, like, just sort of my top books that I recommend to anybody, and this would definitely make the list. So I bought some fun things here that I was going to show you. There are actually a couple things here. I did get, this is the BTS winter package, which they basically went on, like, a winter trip to Helsinki in Finland, and they of course filmed a bunch of it and took a bunch of beautiful photos and went to some fun places. And then the package itself comes with all sorts of fun things. I just loved their outfits. All of their winter coats and winter sweaters are so beautiful, and, like, I love the way the Big Hit staff edits the travel videos, because, like, they show you, you know, them on the plane, them at the hotel, like, them on the bus, just all sorts of fun moments that, like, the same kind of moments I like to include in my travel vlogs, so it really feels like, you know, you've kind of gone along with them on the trip. So yeah, anyway, my BTS merch collection is growing slowly but surely. But the thing I was going to show you was actually these magazines. Down at the bottom here, I first spotted them on Instagram. They're called Lodestars, and they're, like, it's almost like a coffee table book because it's pretty thick. I have 3 here. You can buy them individually, or you can buy them in sets of 3, and you can also, I think, like, buy the subscriptions so that you get the new ones when they come out. But I just bought a package of 3. But yeah, they're really thick and just beautiful colored prints and illustrations. So it's a travel magazine, so all about different places in Switzerland, in Portugal, in Japan. They didn't have a Korea edition, or else I totally would have bought it. I've been reading through the articles in the Switzerland one, and it's been so much fun. These photos are so gorgeous, and definitely like takes me back to our trip. Like there was an article on Lauterbrunnen. I've just been editing my Lauterbrunnen vlog, and Lauterbrunnen is just, oh my gosh, such a beautiful, beautiful place. But it's been fun to read about other places too that like I'd like to go maybe on another trip, or things that you've never heard of, like the one article, oh where is it, about a hot air balloon ride. And apparently the writer went up with these like competitive hot air balloon pilots, which I didn't even know there were hot air balloon pilot competitions. But it's just fun to learn about something that you like never had even heard of. There's another article about some giant onion festival that they have every year in Bern. Some of the writing is a little bit on the flowery side, but overall it's very evocative and definitely kind of makes you feel like you've taken a mini trip to Switzerland, and definitely like the kind of articles that I think I would come back and read again. There was one at the very beginning. The mind has mountains. That's apparently a quote from a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem, but they do also talk about other literary inspirations for Switzerland, including Frankenstein, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Heidi. Anyway, I'm taking these slow and enjoying them, and just really, really fun travel stories and absolutely gorgeous visuals to go along with them. Definitely the kind of magazine that you keep and savor and reread. Oh gosh, doesn't that look like something out of Lord of the Rings? Now I want to go back to Switzerland. So I posted these on my Insta story. I have been starting to learn Korean. I did get tickets to the BTS concert. I am so ridiculously excited. So now that is giving me even more motivation to try to learn some Korean. I really like this series, Talk to Me in Korean. They have a YouTube channel too. This is by the same company, and this is learning the Hangul alphabet, which actually is pretty easy to pick up. It's just trying to remember it all, obviously. Here's my little RJ notebook. I've been trying to parse out the lyrics of some BTS songs. Big hit. BTS's label did just announce that they are coming out with an app to learn Korean with BTS, which I just think is so brilliant, because I'm sure there are so many ARMY, there are so many fans who want to learn Korean because of BTS, so I can't wait until that app comes out. In the meanwhile, I will soldier on with these. I mentioned this book a while ago. This Eric Newman was actually a student of Jung, and I've been talking about Jung in some of my recent videos. I was reading an anthology with just kind of quotes from Jung, but I'm excited to check this one out. Jordan Peterson, who I really enjoy, actually recommended this as like a good kind of overview and introduction to Jung. It's pretty thick, but I would really like to start this sometime soon. I feel like I'm in a bit of a quandary at the moment because I have so many books that I want to read, and last year at the end of December I made this video of like 20 classics that I want to read, and I did say like in the 2020s, so I have the whole decade, but like having that list, like I want to get started on all of them, and it's like this is too many books to read all at once. When you have too many books that you want to read at once, it's like you're torn in too many different directions and you don't make much progress in any of the books. For example, I did get Demian by Hermann Hesse out of the library, and I did start a chapter or two, but then I kind of got distracted and have not made much progress. This actually is fairly slim, so it shouldn't take me too long, but it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, do I sit down and finish this, or should I finish my reread of Little Women? I actually did get through the first kind of half, which is technically the Little Women half, and then the second half, Good Wives, I have not reread yet. It was actually watching the recent new adaptation of Little Women in the movie theater that made me want to pull this book out and reread it, and I'm so glad I did, although it's kind of funny. I did like that movie watching it, but I actually like the movie less and less the more I reread the book. It's so funny when they change little things in a movie, like from the book, it makes you realize how good the book was and how those little things that didn't seem to matter, actually the author did them for a reason, because when they're changed, it doesn't make the story better, it makes the story worse. Like you're actually missing something when they change these little things. I mentioned in my last month's reading vlog how a lot of movie adaptations seem to be very cynical. They kind of twist the tone of the original work that they're adapting. And Little Women, when I first watched that movie, I didn't think it was too bad. Like, the sort of modern cynical attitude didn't poison the movie, and yet reading the book, I'm realizing it did sour the movie. There were a couple moments that really didn't add much. Like, in particular, when Meg goes to this house party and goes to this ball, and she lets her friends dress her up. Like, comparing the tone of the book to the tone of the movie, like, they're really completely different. In the movie, we're obviously meant to think that Meg really wishes she was rich and wishes she could be a part of this lifestyle. But in the book, she does see that, like, it's kind of empty. Perhaps Meg felt, without understanding why, that the people she was staying with were not particularly cultivated or intelligent people, and that all their gilding could not quite conceal the ordinary material of which they were made. And like, even during the party when she's all dressed up, in the movie she says, "Just let me have my fun tonight and then I'll be desperately good for the rest of my life." That's what she says in the movie. But in the book it's quite different. Laurie says, "You don't look as if you were having a good time, are you?" And Meg says, "No, not just now. Don't think I'm horrid. I only wanted a little fun. But this sort don't pay, I find, and I'm getting tired of it." She does also say, "I'm not Meg tonight. I'm a doll who does all sorts of crazy things. Tomorrow I shall put away my fuss and feathers and be desperately good again," she answered with an affected little laugh. Like, she does realize that that sort of lifestyle is empty and that that's actually not what she wants. Whereas in the movie, she doesn't realize that. And to say that she'll be desperately good for the rest of her life, like, you know, the tone of that, I feel like, is quite different from the tone you get in the book. I don't know if the modern day adapters just thought Louisa May Alcott was wrong in deeper, often Christian messages she was trying to send, or if they just wanted to ignore that part because they weren't popular, or if they thought Louisa May Alcott wasn't sincere when she originally wrote them. I think it does come off as very sincere, though. The way she talks about how important faith is to the Little Women. It's too bad that modern adaptations, like the Little Women movie, kind of ignore or brush over that aspect. See, this is what I meant when I was reading too many books. I'm also still in the middle of my biography of St. Paul the Apostle. So you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm not going to let myself finish Little Women until I have finished St. Paul the Apostle. So I'll put her back over here underneath Lilo and Stitch's house. That stays there. Also, I'm not going to let myself think about starting this until I've finished Demian. There's my new plan. I'm going to focus on finishing Demian and my St. Paul biography. I just really love this author's writing style. It really brings the thinking of Paul to life and expresses the challenges Paul faced in such an interesting way. Followers of Jesus must get used to living with a form of theological jet lag. The world all around is still in darkness, but they have set their clocks for a different time zone. It is already daytime on their worldview clock, and they must live as daytime people. That's just like in The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. Like, you're trying to orient yourself not by worldly standards, but by God's standards, and that means that you're not always going to be swimming in the same stream as everybody else. I also love how this author is constantly drawing on Paul's kind of deep rooting in Jewish scriptures and other parts of the Old Testament. This one passage from the book of Numbers I actually came across in my Magnificat, and I copied it out because I liked it so much. "The utterance of Balaam, son of Beor, the utterance of the man whose eye is true, the utterance of one who hears what God says and knows what the Most High knows, of one who sees what the Almighty sees, enraptured, and with eyes unveiled. I see him, though not now. I behold him, though not near." This author actually brings up the story of Balaam and Beor in reference to Paul's teachings and Paul's beliefs, which I thought was so cool. I reacted to J-Hope's outro Ego last week. I just love that song. It has the best catchy beat. Like, it just makes you smile to listen to it. And I love some of the lyrics. "Look ahead, the way is shining. Keep going now." My cousin Becky got me this cute quote board, so I'm really excited to put up lots of different quotes. Since we were just talking about Jung, there's actually a podcast called Speaking of Jung, where they talk about the relationship between Jung's works and BTS, because of course shadow, ego, and persona are all kind of concepts from Jung's work, and Map of the Soul had an intro persona, and the new Map of the Soul 7 has a interlude shadow and an outro ego. So in the Speaking of Jung podcast, it's actually the psychologist who wrote a book called Map of the Soul, which kind of inspired BTS to do their album based on Map of the Soul. So if you guys are looking for a new podcast to try, it's called Speaking of Jung, and they have a new episode about ego that I have not listened to yet. I listened to the one about Yoongi's shadow, but yeah, gotta listen to J-Hope's ego. For those of you who are not fans of BTS, I hope you guys know that I appreciate you, and I appreciate you guys sticking around through my occasional BTS rants. I can't believe I'm going to see them in person. I like totally can't wait. I am dragging my brothers, so I've been sending them BTS songs. I gotta prep them more so they're ready to go to the concert. I did do a video about my beautiful little princess cottages and castles here because you guys have been requesting that. So if you haven't caught it yet, you should go check that out. Generally, I just do one reading vlog wrap-up of the entire month, but I'm realizing that I already have quite a few books that I've mentioned, so maybe I'll try to edit this and get it up sooner. Could be a little mid-month reading vlog wrap-up. Anyway, I hope you guys have been having a great month and a great reading month. Don't forget to give this video a like. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Until then, I hope you have a magical day. Bye!